Hello and welcome to Samuel Ramey Behind the Curtain, where we'll be hearing anecdotes about Samuel Ramey's life and career off stage or behind the curtain. I hope you enjoy this series. Andrew Brumana would like to know, uh, with the movie Amadeus, how did you get involved singing on the soundtrack, and how was the experience?
Because his recording was done in London, and so I believe they just contacted agents and asked, probably gave a list of what singers they needed in what operas, and I sing the a few little spits and coughs of Figaro on the soundtrack. And I think at the time, I was actually at the Royal Opera singing in Figaro. So, um, so that's how it happened. It's all put together by all the various singers' agents, and remember going to I think it was the Abbey Road Studios where it was recorded. Um, yep, and Neville Mariner was the conductor, and met Tom Holtz, who played Mozart, came to the recording session because he wanted to watch Neville Mariner because, of course, Tom Holtz had to look like he had knew something about conducting for the movie. And he was a very nice guy, I remember.
There's a scene in the movie where they're rehearsing Figaro,
Yeah,
and it's the opening scene for Figaro,
yeah,
and you have to come in late.
yeah. They wanted me to make a mistake because, it's the very opening of the opera, and it was da dum 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 cinque is the way it's supposed to go. Yeah, but they wanted me to sing bum ba dum bum 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 cinque, and then Mozart goes late, and then I do it again, and he goes late. Then I finally get it right. And so,
Please. Look, there's a servant down on his knees, and do you know why? Not from any oppression, no, because he's measuring a space. And do you know what for? His bed. His wedding bed. To see if it will fit. Late. Late. On the beat. Good. Yes. Yes. Early.
It's hard to do that when you've learned it the correct way, and then,
yeah, and of
we'd like you to sing that
course
wrong,
the
please.
problem was going back to Covent Garden. I had to do it right at Covent Garden.
And no one was yelling late from the pit.
No, but an interesting thing about that was, as we recorded for, I don't remember exactly, but for 3 or 4 days, I think, and the director of the film, Milos Forman, was also there for the sessions, and he got the idea of, well, these singers are so fabulous. I said, why don't we ask them if they can be in the movie? Act their parts. And so they did, but unfortunately, they were going to start filming, not long after this recording session, and all the singers were booked elsewhere, so none of us were available to actually appear in the film, which is too bad.
I never understand why they think they need to use actors to act like they're singing opera.
Well, opera singers can't act.
I guess that's what they think,
I think that's what they think, yeah.
but just use the singers. Good Lord, they're on stage all the time. They know the music, they know how to sing.
An interesting thing about another interesting thing about the Amadeus, um, we singers that did the soundtrack were just given us a little contract saying that to do this, and we got so much money. It was not very much money, but later on, after it was all done and everything, and maybe I don't know if remember if it was just before the movie came out or just after, but sometime after, it was announced that there was going to be a soundtrack recording released, and there was nothing in We Singers' contracts about them releasing a recording. And one of the singers, Felicity Lott, Flott as we called her in those days, Dame
Dame
Felicity Lott,
Dame Flott.
she is the one. She called her agent and said there was nothing in our contracts about a. So all the agents went to the source, and we ended up getting quite a bit more money.
Thank goodness for Felicity.
Yes, yes, we all paid Felicity a commission for 1 year.
Did you really?
No.
Now she's going to contact you and say, hey, by the
Yes.
way. So, you know what? When you're an opera singer, you also have to be a business person.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
Got to keep track of all that stuff.
Hmm.
Okay, Andrew actually has the same questions about when you appeared on Sesame Street.
Sesame Street.
How did
Yes.
that happen?
Well, that happened through I had a very wonderful publicity agent in New York named Edgar Vincent.
I loved Edgar.
Edgar was a real gentleman,
He was.
He's no longer with us, but he was fantastic. And he's the one that got me that appearance. They were they were doing Sesame Street. Were doing a series about the alphabet, and I remember Marilyn Horne was on. She was on the C for cookie. She was the C lady. Anyway, so I was the L man, and they wrote a version of the Toreador song from Carmen. L is the letter that I love the most.
There are people who sing high, but I like singing low. It's a thing that I do well, and low begins with the letter that I love the most. L helps me go low, 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 low. L can also help me la, la, la. L, I think you as well. Oh, say, can you tell I'm in a spell under the letter L. L is the letter that we love the most. Help me, la, la, la. We think you as well. Oh, say, can you tell we're in a spell under the letter L. L starts some of my favorite words, like love, life, and laughter. So to you, dear better else I hereby vow to sing forever after. L is the letter that we love the most. L helps us go low, 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 low. L can also help us la, la, la. L, we think you are swell. Oh, say, can you tell we're in a spell under the letter
And then he married me later.
L
is for
is for
Lindsay.
Lindsay now, yes. Yes, I certainly am the L man.
What was it like working with the Muppets?
Oh, well, it was very interesting. It was recorded out in recording studios out in Queens, New York, and so therefore for me the Toreador, I was in a Escamillo outfit and everything, and the Muppets were
Dancing around.
all dancing around, and and then I had to, there were all these people down on their hands and knees, holding the Muppets up. So I had to make my way around all these people on the floor. It was interesting. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Did some voiceover work. You played the role of the Beast in Over the Garden Wall,
Yep. Hmm.
which I think we mentioned before, won an Emmy. How did that happen?
Well, I think that whoever would put the Garden Wall together, the producer, the director, I don't know, knew about me, and that I played all these villains, all these bad guys, and so wanted me for the part for some reason, and just contacted my agent, because my agent just called me and said that he had gotten this call and wanting me to do this part in this animated series, and to voice this part, which was very interesting. I mean, it was not easy to do, because by the time I did it, the rest of the cast had already done
Their part.
parts, so they had this tape, with the Beast's lines missing, and I had to just voice over and fit them in to the soundtrack.
So you did that in Chicago, right?
Right. Yes.
They arranged for a studio in Chicago, a recording studio.
And the director was on the phone. I was talking to her on the phone throughout the recording. And I remember I started voicing, and I was talking like this.
In your opera voice?
Yeah, I was talking like this, saying my lines like this, in this sort of deep, I thought scary voice, but they wanted him more like this. They wanted him to be like this.
Woodsman, I knew you would come. I have something for you.
What have you done?
Why, I've given you another Edelwood.
No!
He will burn nicely in the lantern.
No! I won't do this!
You've been grinding up lost souls for years.
I didn't know! I didn't know this is where the Edelwood trees came from!
And would it have mattered? Would you have just let your daughter's spirit burn out forever? Feed the lantern.
No.
I suppose after all these years, you just don't care for her anymore.
Hold your tongue or I'll remove it from your mouth! I do not speak of my daughter. She would not wish this. Let's get you free. No.
I only wish to help you, Woodsman. You need oil, or else your daughter will...
I told you to hold your tongue!
The difference between performing on stage and performing.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun. I'd,
Would you like to do more
yeah, I'd
voiceover
love to
work?
do more voiceover. If
The thing is, you have to find somebody who knows about voiceover work.
yeah.
So if anybody out there knows of anybody who wants to hire Sam for some good voiceover work, leave a message in the comments. He'd be more than happy to do that, and he'd be wonderful. Well, Over at the Garden Wall has a huge cult following.
Yeah.
My niece, Shannon,
Hmm.
she was she in college when you did that?
I think so.
And people were talking about it, and Shannon said, "Oh, that's my Uncle Sam, the voice of the Beast." They just couldn't believe it. They just wanted to know everything about that. It was just so every now and then, oh yeah, he was the voice of the Beast. Never mind that, he's a famous opera singer.
First things first.
First things first. Or our neighbor, and when we lived in Chicago, I remember when we first met Karen.
Hmm.
She told us the story. She's a very good storyteller. And she said, when you guys were building your house, some of the other people in the neighborhood apparently knew who you were. And they said, "Karen, do you know who's moving in next to you? It's somebody famous." And she's like, "Oh, what team do they play for?" No, he's an opera singer, Samuel Ramey. She's like, "Oh, okay." But then she found out that you'd been on Sesame Street, and she was like, "Oh, he is famous." From For Opera, how did you come to sing Asur in Semiramide?
Hmm.
Had you heard any bass in this role before?
I'm not sure how I think there must have been a plan to do Semiramide. The first time I did was at the festival in Aix-en-Provence in 1980, and the two ladies were Montserrat Caballé and Marilyn Horne, and I'm just wondering if maybe because I had already sung with Marilyn a bit, and I'm thinking that maybe she may have had something to do with it, but I don't know. She never told me.
Always, she's been a very great advocate of yours.
Yes, that's true. She has been and still is. But anyway, it was quite an experience and one of the most difficult roles that I've ever done. Yes, well, yeah, whenever I got something, a new role to do, I usually would try to find a recording just to listen to sort of familiarize myself with it. So yeah, I'd listen to. There was I think at the time there was only one recording of it. That was the one with Marilyn and Joan Sutherland. And the bass on that recording was a French-Canadian bass named Joseph Rouleau. And so I listened to. I spent quite a lot of time listening to him do it. That recording was with Richard Bonning conducting, and I remember being very thankful that I didn't have to sing it at the tempos that Maestro Bonning took.
Another question from For Opera is talk about you working with Jeanine Rice, the famous French coach.
Yes. Okay. Well, this started way back in the 1970s. My agent in New York, Matthew Epstein, knew Jeanine from his travels and from, I think, probably from other singers as well. And he suggested. I remember when I got my offer to do my first Mephistopheles in Faust at the New York City Opera. Matthew suggested that I work with Jeanine, So I just made the plan to, and I was going to do this Faust in the fall of 1974. So I I had some other new repertoire that I was going to be doing too, which was Anna Bolena, Henry VIII and Anna Bolena at City Opera. So I heard of another coach, an Italian coach named Luigi Ricci. You may have known of him. He wrote a book of cadenzas. It's
The
very
famous Ricci
the
cadenzas.
famous Ricci cadenza book. So the summer of 1974, I first went to Rome. I spent a month in Rome coaching with Luigi Ricci. We did not end up doing Anna Bolena because I proposed that, and he said, "I don't know the opera." He was very honest. He could have faked it, and I'd had to pay. I would have been paying him. But he just said, I really couldn't coach you in that because I don't know the opera. And he said, what else would you like to work on? So we ended up working on a number of bass arias, Italian arias, but then we spent a lot of time working on Don Giovanni recitative, because I was going to be doing my first Don Giovanni at City Opera in the fall of '74 as well. So we spent a lot of time working on the Don Giovanni recitativi, and which was incredible. It was so wonderful working with him on recitatives. It was amazing. And then after I finished in Rome, I remember taking the overnight train to Paris and calling Janine, and we started coaching and Mephistopheles. And I spent nearly a month in Paris, going every day to Janine, working on Mephistopheles. And she was one. I was a bit nervous, French was. I mean, many singers find French difficult, but Janine was one too. She was not insistent on, so many of the closed vowels that the French think are important. She was one for much more open vowels, and even when they were supposed to be closed. She even I remember her telling me that she said, the reason that France has not produced as many great singers as other countries is because so many of the French singers insist on singing their language the way they speak their language. And she said, with French, you can't do that. So
You have to open the vowels up so
Yeah.
that the sound comes out.
yeah, it's je veux, not je veux. I had that fight with Thomas Grubb. He wanted me to sing je veux, and Janina told me to sing je veux.
Yes, I will take my advice from one of the most famous French coaches.
Yes. Yeah,
Who's
and
French.
she was
was-
wonderful. She just died this last year, but she was just fabulous. I always made a point of going to Paris and coaching with her when I was learning my French repertoire, because I did a lot of French repertoire over the years. In fact, after this 1974 summer, I went back the next summer, 1975, and worked with her again because I was going to be doing Escamillo for the first time, not too distant future. I was going to be doing Hoffmann, so we worked on Escamillo in Carmen and the four villains in Les Contes d'Hoffmann. So anyway, spent another summer, another few weeks in Paris working with her the next year. And
So that was a bit of a financial investment for you
yes,
to pay your way to go to Europe, stay there, pay the coaches to work with them, but
It paid off.
it did. Everybody always says how wonderful your French pronunciation is, how wonderful your Italian pronunciation is. If anybody ever gets a chance to coach with him, especially on recitative,
Yes.
do it and listen to what he is telling you. It is very difficult, especially if you don't speak that language,
Yeah.
to do recitative the way it is supposed to be done. But he knows.
Oh, well. I have my opinions.
He knows.
No budgetors.
Well, every now and then.
Few budgetors.
You can throw them in. Don't go crazy.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so we're actually going to talk a little more about Jeanine Rice in the next episode
Yep.
because she was rather instrumental in you starting your career in Europe. So keep the questions coming.
Yeah.
We
like
'em.
I like trying to answer questions.
A little, yeah. What year was that?
Yes. Yes. I'm getting the road maps in my brain connected
Yeah.
again.
So, yeah. Thank you for
Thank you,
watching
yes.
again. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. Please subscribe and continue watching this series. Bye.
Bye. Next time.
Ecco che quella cercami no, cercami no, cercami no. Meglio che l'ordine, ora sia, il minuetto, la follia, la rimanna, ora dolor.